What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline, episode 320 here on Bench Clear Media. I am your host, Adam Palmer from Heroes for Sale. Today, we are here with two other wonderful co-hosts. We have Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and we have Dr. James Beckett, excuse me. That was my casual name for him. Sorry about that. I'll start with you, Orlando. How was your week going? What you got going on?
Great. Survived the hurricane. That was the main thing here in Florida.
Oh,
So
good, good.
everything is
Good to hear that.
fine. Talked to my daughter. She lives in Lakeland, so it ran right over her. So she was out of
Yeah.
out of power, but she got power last night. So it seems like everything else is good. So back to the hobby.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Good to hear. That's obviously want to give condolences, all of the hope that everybody is safe from those hurricanes. Those were like a couple weeks there of some really scary weather down there in Florida and kind of in the lower part of the US. So hopefully everybody is safe. Dr. Beckett, how about you? How was your week this week?
I live in Texas, so I got the greatest hobby in the world in the best state in the USA.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that. We have some phenomenal topics here on the show today. I want to give a shout out to Mad City Brew in the chat here. We got Card Hunter saying cheers. Also, make sure you guys let us know where you're watching the show from. And we already got Matthew coming in here saying he's watching from North Carolina. I hope you are safe down there for sure. We got Stukes baseball cards. Good morning. We got Abel from Vegas, phenomenal list of people we got here early on in the show. Super psyched to get into these topics. So the first topic, we got some more. I just want to comment some more people saying where they're from here. We got Ventura, California. We got Brody in the chat. What's up, Brody? How we doing? Another one of our wonderful co-hosts here. We got somebody watching from Hawaii. Love to see that. I mean, it's super early for that. I mean,
Aloha.
that must be like 4 or 5 in the morning there, actually. So shout out. Yeah, exactly. They said yawn the show. So shout out. We got Vancouver too. Wow, we got a lot of like West Coasters here in the show. To love that. The first topic we have on the show today, breaking as of last night, a new PSA 10 has been added to the list of, or not the list, but a new PSA 10 has been graded of the 1961 Fleer Wilt Chamberlain rookie. That makes it the fourth PSA 10 of the Wilt Chamberlain from this, of the 2,100 copies total. So I'll start with you, Orlando. You were telling me a little bit about the before the show, some of the stuff that you had on this topic. So what did you think when you saw this news? And I know you were saying something about maybe there was a crossover here potentially.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this was the crossover of the SGC 10 that was found at that grocery store in like a drawer in a grocery store. And there actually were a few others that were found. They also found the Wilt Chamberlain in action card, and I think a couple of others that were found in there, and graded a 10. And I think what happened was that they sent it into PSA for review. And if you look at the other PSA 10s, this one is definitely a lot better than the PSA 10s. So it just got crossed over. That's my understanding of it. That it's the same card that was an SGC, and I think that one they bought it for 1.7 million, and now they crossed it over to PSA. Probably that'll add some value to the card.
Yeah, and so Dr. Beckett, obviously. Yeah, Dr. Beckett, obviously you have worked in the grading industry. What are kind of your thoughts on like crossing cards over like this? Is it something that, is it something where you're like, I don't really like that, or kind of what are your thoughts overall on the crossing like that?
I think our company was the one that kind of popularized the crossover. Back when we were doing, and we started doing raw card review and crossovers and minimum grade as well. So there were different things that you could do that would, different than just submitting a card. So if we got a card from another company, we could, and there were two ways to do it, guys. We could either crack it out and give it a full examination. That was a last resort. We would look at it in the holder and say, is this going to cross over at a favorable grade? If it's an SGC 10, is it going to be a PSA 10? And if it's not, we would have left it alone per the instructions. But sometimes it was too close to call. You'd crack it out, and then once you cracked it out, you're in trouble because now you got to go with it. So I don't know which way that was done with SGC and PSA having a common ownership. I'm sure it was done amicably if that's the way it was. The question, against the same card, but it's in a perceived, more prestigious, higher resale value holder. But I'm wondering that the 1.7 million was already a pretty premium price. And it's this
right, exactly.
card. Do we really want to pay a lot more? Again, there was risk involved, potentially risk involved of submitting it if it was cracked and submitted. But I just think there's a lot of PSA only people, and that probably increases the marketability of the card. I'm not denying that.
Right. Yeah, I do agree with the PSA maybe holding a little bit more weight here for this card. SGC,
Well,
I don't know,
Adam,
maybe.
Adam, way more weight.
Yeah.
Way more
more
weight.
weight.
It's not negligible. It's way more weight. All the and I believe PSA will eventually be more inclusive on their registry, but even then, there's going to be an edge. The PSA is the primo brand, so clearly, whether it's a 10% premium or more, it's certainly. Now, my question is, did they have to pay the upcharge? Because now, with $1 million plus card, $1.7 million card, is it 10,000 to cross it over? I don't know.
Yeah, right. That is kind of that's an interesting conversation. I mean, all in all, they probably, they definitely, are, if they plan on selling this in the future, having it in the PSA 10 holder is going to be, I don't know, 2x maybe like a 1.5x. I mean, where do we think, Dr. Beck, I'll ask you this question since it seems like you, since you're shaking your head a little bit here, where do you think the price of that card goes, I guess, now that it's switched over from SGC to PSA?
If it's too big a premium, then every SGC 10 is going to get bought up as soon as this episode airs. If it's a double premium. So it can't be that high. But it is a premium, and it's not negligible. And it's more than the cost of the grading. But there are other people who have cracked it out, sent it in, and it came out authentic. Or it came out didn't meet minimum. So there is some risk there if you bust it from the slab. So yeah, there's got to be a premium just because of the strength of the PSA brand.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to be 50%. I mean, this is like getting a 1 of 1 regraded.
Yeah.
Right. It's still a 1 of 1. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think the story of the card also, I think, is pretty interesting. The only thing it's hard, it's like, it's almost like a game of telephone here. Like, it's like 10 years from now, it's going to be like, the story was this. And then, the story gets retold so many times that it's going to be hard for some people to really associate the story with the card because it's been told so many times and because so much time has passed that it's like, it is technically, like, if we look at it, is 1 of 4. So it's like, that one of the 4 cards has this kind of crazy backstory for it. So, Orlando, I'll ask you this question, actually. Do you think that the story of this card increases the value? Because we know, obviously, that crossing it over has increased the value. But do you think the story of, like, finding the card and then getting it graded SGC and then buying it for 1.7 and then crossing it over, do you think how much value, or do you think that adds anything to it, like the story of the card?
Yeah, I think that does add value to the card because now you have provenance. And when you think back at different types of collectibles, provenance really is very important. Knowing that the person that owns this card basically is the second owner of that card. Nobody else has ever owned that card other than the person that literally opened it from the pack and who found it, which I guess is a family member there. So I think that does have some extra value on it because, I'm not going to say that there's a lot of high-end cards that are altered, but there are some out there, and guaranteed this one is not altered. Where there may be other 10s that, I don't know, but you never know. You don't know the history of those cards, but you do know the history of this particular card. And I always think that adds value to it. I own a 52 Mano, and my 52 Mano, I know exactly who owned it and who pulled it from the pack. And that to me is invaluable because I know that I got it from the family of the person that literally pulled it from the pack, and I'm the second owner of that. So to me, even though mine is just an authentic, it's a minimum size. To me, it's just the story behind it, and knowing that it's a minimum size because it came from the factory as a minimum size, and it hasn't been trimmed. So that to me, I think provenance. I think probably in the future it's going to be even more important than it is today. Any card that has a story like this particular one, I think that's going to, of course, add to the value. Now, how much is it going to add to the value? Who knows? This was a private sale, so it wasn't like at auction. I think it did sell very high, but I think at this point, it's probably a $2 million card in the PSA holder.
Right.
Yeah, I think PSA lost a chance. If I were still running BGS, I would have added an additional line on the flip.
Yes.
Because what Orlando's saying is true. It's true for now. And I guess if you looked it up, this serial number, you'd know this is the one. Orlando, you think this is the nicest of compared to the other three, but this is from a find. It's just like sometimes PSA or other grading companies have noted that this was from the Mr. Mint original 52 tops find, something like that. They missed out on a chance to give the provenance. And I think I'm in favor of anything that adds knowledge, accurate information that's helpful for people to understand, because this might be the finest known.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have an interesting comment here that I think I want to bring up. So, Vintage Card Collector said the SGC arbitrage is real. Think if PSA would guarantee the SGC grade, the SGC branding would die off. Which I do believe that they have said that SGC it's going to be its own brand. Like, when they were working with PSA, they'd said that they were going to keep the SGC branding, which I think is smart. I mean, I think it's interesting that you have two competing grading services kind of all under the same roof. And like I don't know, is there any way, so Orlando, I'll start with you here. Do you think that there's any way that PSA and SGC would be able to integrate and like almost be on a similar scale where it's like, they almost, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of a theory, or it's sort of like a pontification about the concept. But like, do you think that we would ever see something where it's like PSA and SGC branding all within the same kind of grading scale?
That's a tough question, but I feel that the PSA wants to keep SGC as a separate brand. And that's just, again, my opinion. A lot of people think they were just going to incorporate it because I think they're really two different companies. They really operate a little bit differently, especially with the customer service aspect of it. And I think PSA needs to learn a lot about customer service from PS and from SGC. But I think that there are some people that are very loyal to SGC, a lot of vintage collectors. And in some cases, I will say that I've had SGC cards. I had a card from 1888, a Goodwin Champion card that I submitted. It was a 4 in SGC. I submitted to PSA and it came out a 5. So it's still subjective. Some people say PSA is tougher or SGC is tougher. I think in vintage, SGC may be a little bit tougher than PSA sometimes. But overall, I think that they're going to incorporate, in my opinion, as the registry. I think they should put SGC cards in the PSA registry or make a universal registry. I think that'll also help out. I think those are the type of things that PSA is looking to do. But as far as, making it all one company, I don't think they'll do that. I don't think that's what they're planning to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe similar to like with Topps and Fanatics, how Fanatics bought Topps, but they didn't want to turn Topps into Fanatics in a way. Like it's maybe something similar to that. We have another interesting question here that I wanted to pull up. So doesn't PSA have a policy now where you can send something in for a crossover and they won't crack it unless it's a guaranteed 10? I do believe that there is some sort of paperwork that you can fill out when you are kind of crossing it over. Dr. Beckett, was there anything like that when you were working with Beckett? Like, was there anything where it was like you wanted it to be a certain grade? If it wasn't a grade, they wouldn't crack the card. Was there anything like that at Beckett?
It's impossible to do it in the way it was said. You can't guarantee it. But we were very careful if somebody said, I don't want to crack it unless it's going to be a 10. And we said, we can't guarantee it. But if we think it's got a really good chance, then we're going to crack it. And so sometimes we'd call them up and say, hey, we're getting ready to crack. That means we think it's going to be a 10, but it may or may not be. There's a possibility of something we can't see through the slab. Now with the BGS cards, you're looking at the holder plus the inner sleeve. And so when people are crossing over away from that, but and on the other hand, the BGS cards have the subgrades, so you kind of see what's going on there.
Right. True. That's also a good point.
But I don't see in PSA. The problem would be I see the registry. I like that, and maybe even integrating the pop reports to some degree. But Ryan Stasinski's doing some of that anyway. But there'd be a problem with PSA in the way they branded. Their guarantee is a very important part of their brand promise.
Right.
To bring SGC completely under the fold, you would have a run on, and again, one of the bottlenecks we had in our company was the slabbing machines. The sonic sealers are very expensive, and that can be the bottleneck. Can you imagine that if PSA said, hey, SGC is going to go away, but we'll reholder your cards for very, very cheap, it would be a huge bottleneck. And but people aren't going to want a defunct company over, it's an oversized slab anyway. And so you'd have that problem. And it might be in the process of cracking out the SGC slab to put it into PSA slab, something, again, maybe it's 1 out of 1,000. But if there's a bad one in there, the SGC guarantee says we're going to make good on it. And SGC has created an awful lot of really valuable pre-war cards. Yeah. They have a strong foothold in that market. So it's not trivial, guys. It's a business decision for Nat Turner, and he's a smart guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then Gordon just wanted to left another comment here. It didn't mean guarantee. And I think, I maybe said guarantee as in just the higher grade submitted, basically. And, something that I've always thought with grading and within the sports card industry that I would love to see is some sort of, like you were talking about, Orlando, like almost like a registry that kind of you can track the journey of a card from like where it is. I know that would be pretty hard if it's not graded. If there's no certification number, that would almost be impossible. But like I always thought, and I think Card Ladder does a pretty good job with this, like documenting like certain specific cards within PSA. But I do think that, I don't know, in my opinion, I think it would be a good idea to see sort of the journey of a card, and then you could kind of, sorry, Dr. Beck, go ahead.
That's called blockchain.
Blockchain. Well, yes,
blockchain will answer that. In our lifetime, there will be. Not that there'll be a digital component, a virtual component and a physical component.
Right.
So you will know. But the thing is, that means Fanatics, and Fanatics will be the one to do it, and they will get a piece
totally
out of every single time it changes hands.
Right, exactly. So and I was going to use, I was going to say blockchain, but usually when I start talking about like crypto and NFTs, people just start rolling their eyes. So I try and stay away from the buzzwords within the crypto. But I mean, it would be blockchain, essentially, the technology. Yeah.
Not necessarily crypto, but it's blockchain. So there's tracking at every step of the way. And that is where Fanatics is going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, like I said, that's something that I've thought would be a great idea for the industry for quite some time. I mean, just to add a little bit of transparency between where cards are going. Obviously, it would be a little bit tough for in person, but just overall, I think it would be a great addition to the, like I said, transparency and just being able to see the journey of a card. I always think, the more information you can get on specific cards. So I think somebody, I don't know if this is actually real or not, the card facts report, that I love that actually. That's we can get like the Fox or whatever. We can get the Carfax Fox to be like the new mascot for whatever company decides to do this. But that's actually okay. Mookie, be careful, because someone's going to trademark that, because that's actually, I love that name. So I think that's kind of a lot of what we think on this card here from the crossover. I'm just going to ask, Orlando, any last thoughts before we move on to the next topic here?
No, I think that's about it on this one.
Yeah. Dr. Beckett, how about you?
Sounds good. I wish I had the card.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, totally. So now we're moving on to the next topic here. It's gonna be fairly quick. I mean, it's kind of just an update, start of the NHL season. Let me make sure this is muted here. Sorry, there we go. We got the start of the NHL season. Definitely exciting. You have a lot of the top rookies making their debut, like the number 1 pick who scored in his 10 minutes into his first game. The number 1 pick from this past draft for the San Jose scored. The one thing that I think is interesting that, oops, nope, don't play the music. The one thing that I think is interesting about the young guns and the rookies from this year and last year is that it seems like Upper Deck has decided that they're going to go with like almost what Topps does with Bowman, where the first 2 picks from the draft are in that year's Bowman, or no, sorry, the first pick and the third pick are in that year's Bowman draft, and then the second pick is in the next year's Bowman baseball as kind of the headline player in that product. And it looks like that's what's going to happen with this year's rookie. I believe his name is, I had it up here 2 seconds ago. Macklin, I think. Macklin is his first name. First pick, phenomenal player, scores 10 minutes into his debut. He's not going to be in Series 1, which this upcoming week, I believe it's the 16th, is when Series 1 is going to be released. He's going to be in Series 2. The other big piece of news that was last year was they switched the configuration of the Upper Deck flagship boxes, which I'm actually interested from your perspective, Dr. Beckett. Like, when such a big change like that is being made, is that something where I don't know, I'm just interested from your perspective, like from over the years of being in this industry, like, is that a decision you think was made because of Connor Bedard, or is that a decision that's made 3-4 years in advance, and it just happened that Connor Bedard, his rookie year, was that first year where they switched from, I believe it was 8 cards per pack and 24 packs per hobby box, and now it's 12 cards per pack and then 12 cards per box, which essentially brings the total number of cards from like 190 down to like 150. So, is that, from your perspective, is that a decision that it just happens to be a coincidence, or do you think that maybe Connor Bedard being that as big a rookie as he is, do you think that had a little bit to do with it?
It had a lot to do with it. I think that provided the opportunity. The card companies, people are always down on card companies like it's a money grab. No, they're intended to make money, and they make money by selling products, and they don't make money by selling products that immediately drastically increase the secondary market. And so they want to increase their box prices. And they also, just like the candy bar dilemma, is that they may not increase the price of the box, but they'll decrease the amount of the size of the candy bar. Right. And so they're doing both. And then amazingly, it sticks. And then the next year you're stuck with the smaller candy bar or the different configuration. So I think it provided an opportunity, and they seized the opportunity. You can't raise prices in a down market.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, Connor Bedard, it was just, he's like a generational talent. So it's like, if they had that plan and they sort of knew that he was going to be that guy, like, you're right, that they saw that opportunity, and, whether unfortunately we like it as card collectors or not, it was a good business opportunity for them to, increase profits a little bit.
No, but it's the perception. Connor Bedard is not going to get in the Hall of Fame unless he does what he does for 10 or 15 years. And so It's not a sure thing. He's not Shohei Ohtani from, 50-50 and all that stuff. He hasn't done it on ice, but he shows great promise. And the perception is that he's a generational talent. But Connor McDavid's never won a Stanley Cup, so.
Yeah, got close, but, couldn't put through, unfortunately.
Hockey is tricky. And so, but the perception and the sizzle is why they were able to successfully raise their prices, because you can't always successfully raise your prices in this industry. but Upper Deck
Right.
did.
I
Lowered the
totally.
quantity
Yeah.
and prices went up.
Right, I agree. And so, Orlando, are you like an NHL fan? Like, what's your? Oh, actually, why I don't even know why you
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean,
Florida
I like
Panthers jersey
hockey.
behind you. That's kind of a silly question.
You could see, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
15
yeah.
minutes from the stadium here for the Panthers, and
Okay,
of
yeah.
course they were the champions. So yeah, I'm a big fan
Right,
of
yeah.
hockey. I don't collect a lot of hockey cards though. That's the only thing. But I agree with Dr. Beckett on all that. You just can't keep raising prices. They had to cut some cards. It's just like packaging. When it's just the inflation right now is crazy, but they still got to make
Mhm.
money. They still got to make some profit. So how are you going to do it? Raise the price a little bit and cut back on the size of the product or the box. It still looks the same. It's still a box of cards, but
Right.
you're going to get a lot less.
People are not asking for more cards in packs. They're asking more hits per box.
Right.
And they want to get,
right.
and but they don't want to pay for it. I want the same price with more hit. And
Right.
card companies actually can do that to some degree if
Mhm.
they're adding serial numbered, non-attribute cards. I mean, serial numbered or interesting inserts that are graphically pleasing. But as soon as they start paying for more autographs, paying for more game used memorabilia and relics, that's what drives the cost up. And so
Right.
collectors want more value at the same price.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I haven't been a huge fan of Upper Deck's decision. Like, I think that's, if you listen to, the Hobby News Daily podcast, you probably have heard me kind of not berate Upper Deck for doing it, but when I first heard the news last year, I was like, I don't like that at all. Like, just the fact that now, in order, because then I think, the configuration is fairly, it's not this, no, not the configuration. The collation is not as bad as it was like in the, the 86 Fleer set, like where it's like you basically know the exact order of the cards in every single pack. But like the fact that now the collation is going to be like you have to essentially buy more packs in order to get a Bedard card if that's what you're looking to pull out of that pack, like because there are X amount of young guns that are in each box, and then there's only a certain amount of young gun, like Bedard specific young guns, that are in the pot in the boxes. Like you're not pulling every single one out of a single box, so it's like it's, I don't know, a little bit tough to. I think it's tough for it to be a coincidence. I don't really necessarily think that that's the case. I think that there was definitely, like you were saying, Dr. Beckett, that it was definitely the decision.
It's not a
It was
coincidence.
definitely
yeah. But even more so, what they've done by having more cards per pack and less packs, they have reduced the chance of somebody opening up a pack and being extremely disappointed. Mm-hmm. Because it's very systematic the way they configure the packs with the sandwich. They've got a few base cards and then a couple of good cards and then a few more base cards, so something like that. And so with less packs, every pack is going to have one or two better cards. Whereas if you had 24 packs with 8 cards in there, you're going to get some, presumably, if I'm remembering, that are just all base cards, and that's very disappointing. So you're always going to get something in a pack, and to me, that's customer satisfaction. I didn't get the big hit, but I got something in every pack.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's and I mean, the Bedard card is, it's obviously a base card, but that's kind of like a hit. Like realistically, if you think about it one way, like that rookie card is like, if you're pulling that card out of the box, I don't know how much you're spending on that card on the secondary market now, but it's like, if you were opening that box last year and you pulled the Bedard, it's not as obviously not as good as an autograph necessarily, but it's like, that's that level of player and that level of talent is like, it almost becomes a hit in the box. And especially because they decrease the amount, so now it's in theory it would be harder to find that card. Like I think that kind of all adds to it in a way. And somebody,
I thought they had they still maintain like 6 young guns per box.
That it probably is that way, but there's I guess maybe the configuration on that standpoint, I'm not 100% sure on. If it like if that's the case, then yeah, in theory, I guess maybe you do have the same odds. Then maybe
Or box.
I thought it was like
card. Or like
right. Okay. Yeah. Right. That makes sense.
But again,
yes.
the Upper Deck, no card company has any obligation to make things the way we want it. They're trying to make money. They don't want to make us mad. But to double print Connor Bedard, that would be not good. People say, "Oh yeah, I got
totally."
Then it would devalue it. So adding more inserts and parallels of Bedard or Macklin, Calabrini, any of these, anybody that's going to be of interest, and you've hit when your base card will sell.
Right.
Any
Totally.
sport, if your base card is of interest,
and especially in hockey, because hockey. I was talking to Orlando a little bit before the show. It's like hockey has a very diehard. It's kind of similar to actually the sport itself. It has a very diehard fan base, but the fan base is much smaller, which is impressive considering that it's a very popular sport, and the fact that you still have a little bit of hype around it as much as you do, with such a smaller fan base, I think is definitely great. I think that's a sport that it's one that I almost think it hadn't been affected by like the 2020, 2021 boom where it was like almost every other sport grew exponentially. Hockey did grow a little bit, but it kind of stayed closer to where it was before. But at the same time, it's like, then you have Bedard and it's like, that's, a generational talent and people are going to come into hockey specifically for him. And then, if this rookie this year is similar, like maybe people might look at it the same way.
Adam, show the comment by Foul Ball. That's just a few, but relics, autos, SP. Okay, there's a progression there, and it's to absurdity. But in reality, with Connor Bedard being an SP, it already is. The young guns are SPs to some degree because they're not the same odds as the regular cards. So nobody really has a problem with relics and autos and SPs. You like them. Where it gets tricky is when you get to the SSS, SSP, like he was joking.
Right.
SSP is like, to me, one per case. And that's kind of unrealistic that you think you're excited if you got it. And I don't even know if there is such thing as an SSS, SSP.
super.
But it gets contrived. And so if you just stop the SP with Upper Deck, mainly is done. In fact, with the young guns, they were really good about they've now succumbed to the super short print of the one of ones for the young guns, things like that. And and for the hockey, I don't think the hockey fans like that. Because that means everybody except one actually is going to be angry and disappointed.
Yeah. I kind of have a feeling like a lot of fan bases don't really like the SSP or the SSSSSP or, the SPification of, products where it's like you want the more rare cards, but it's like when every card is a rare card, it's like then what happens to the rarity of the card? It's like it's kind of like a catch-22 almost. It's like I said, when every pack or every couple packs has like some sort of short print or some sort of unnumbered variation. It's like then I don't think necessarily the excitement goes away, but like I think maybe some of the secondary market value, which that kind of leads to the excitement, in my opinion, that kind of may go away at times.
It's just crazy because sometimes you almost have to do so much homework to find out, what's the SSP and the SSP, and you're opening packs and you don't know what's the SSP if you haven't done your homework, and it's just I think it's getting out of hand, in my opinion.
Well, didn't Topps start putting some of those very, very small under the card number? I thought Topps last year started putting SSP, and I've missed some.
Tiny.
It's tiny. It's tiny, but it is there. And like I said, I like rewarding knowledge in the hobby. If you're really into it, you ought to have an edge that you, for example, you recognize that's a different pose variation. At least in baseball. I'm more familiar with baseball than hockey, but
that was definitely something I praised Topps for, was switching from like that little tiny, because it used to just be the serial number on the back of the card was different. That's how you could tell, which that was almost just like you really had to get your magnifying glass out to see those. So it's like now that they're at least, they're at least putting that it's an SSP or an SP in the next to the card number. That because that's what they were doing with Heritage. Heritage had that, and that was one of the things that I liked a lot with Heritage was that they specified which cards were a short print or which cards were a super short print or the action short print or any of the different variations of those cards. I was a fan that they were doing that, and now that they kind of switched it over to some of their flagship products, that's again, I think that was definitely a step in the right direction for binding those SPs for because if you're talking baseball, like there's people in the hobby that I think are going through those cards, and I think there's some scenarios where they don't even know what they're looking for. Really, they're just opening up the pack. So it's like if you can have it on there where people can actually see it, like it just makes it much easier than having to like flip through the cards with the serial number. It's like you don't have to like again pull out your magnifying glass and analyze like you're in CSI or something like that. And actually, speaking of Topps, that will kind of get into a good segue into our next topic here. We have there was some info that was announced about the Topps Chrome update this year. So we have the cover athlete from Topps Chrome update. It's going to be Jackson Holiday, who was one of the great rookies this year, and this is where you're going to find a lot of those MLB debut patches. And I'm actually going to pull up also here another list that Ryan Cracknell from Beckett, one of the great legendary hobby writers in this industry, he put out kind of the list. And I mean, this list is, impressive. Like this is, I think that they've done a good job at putting all of the debut patches in one product and not spacing it out, in my opinion. Like putting Jackson Holiday and Paul Skeens and Ellie De La Cruz, who, Ellie De La Cruz, for example, was kind of the hobby or the player they used a lot of their marketing stuff on in Series 1. And then, Paul Skeens and I think Jackson Holiday was also in Series 1. But players who are in Series 2 are now going to be getting their debut patches in Topps Chrome Update, which I think is a really great thing. So, I'll start with you, Orlando. What are your, this will be the second year of these MLB debut patch cards. So like, what are your kind of thoughts overall on these cards? Are you excited for them?
I love it. I think it's one of the best ideas that Topps has come up with in so many years. I think it's awesome that they're doing this. I mean, you're literally getting a game used patch from the first game, or at least the first year, I think it's an awesome idea. And I heard that they also took the patch from Shohei's 50-50 game, and they're going to use that one also in the future. So I think stuff like that is super cool, and I think those are super collectible. And in the future, 20 years from now, I think those are going to be some of the most desirable cards.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think the fact that we know where the patch is coming from specifically, like we know what game, we know that I'm pretty sure they only wore it in the one game. So it's like we know that it's coming from that game because we've seen, over the course of the last couple of years, we've kind of seen an increase in patches that are not like really special. They're kind of just patches they just toss into cards. So, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Like, do you think that they should decrease the amount of patch cards they have in product in order to use patches and stuff from actual game situations? Or like, I don't know, are you okay with sort of the increased number of the patches, but them not really having that much significance other than, this debut patch, but other than that?
It's just a business decision. I mean, if they have access to the second game patch or something, if it gets too gimmicky, that's a problem. But collectors like cards with interesting attributes. This is a big winner for them. And it's totally. I don't know that it's a 10X thing, but it's cool. If you got one of these, you'd show your friends, whether you were a serious collector or a casual collector. That'd be impressive. So, but I think they're going to space them out. They're going to use it for, spread it out maybe over some different series. There's no reason to put them all in one product if they don't want to. Again, we're moving into the era where Topps and Fanatics is going to be the single licensee for each of these sports, and whatever works in baseball, they're going to be able to do in basketball and in football and Upper Deck can copy it in hockey, but you could have your debut patch, you could have your all-star patch, your last game patch, your no hitter patch. Yeah, it wouldn't be a patch, but something from. So I'm
something like that.
in
Yeah.
favor of anything that's truth in packaging. I don't like a kind of a barely touched jersey that was thrown over your head and never used in a game to be called game used. If it's game used, they ought to say these are the games, and
totally.
Not that we're going to photo match everything, but there ought to be integrity there. That if you say it's game used, it's really game used. If it's player worn, I don't even know what that means, and that price,
right. Nobody. I don't think anybody does.
Should be lower, but there's a lot of unsophisticated buyers that just think, oh, good, that's cool. And if it's autographed,
and then,
I don't care as much if it's autographed, whether it's game used or some kind of a replica patch.
Right. We had a good comment here. Mookie, he said, when are we getting an Orlando hobby hotline debut patch? Is that coming soon? So wait, Orlando, sorry, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show. Is this your first? This is your first day. This is your debut?
No, this is the second. I was on with.
Okay.
Weeks ago, yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss I want to make sure I didn't miss like a big announcement here, being like Orlando's making his debut and we didn't even talk about it. So okay, good. So then but still,
okay. First with Dr. Beckett, the first time that I've been kind of starstruck here.
Well, honored to meet you too, Orlando. But hey, you know what we're doing? We're planting a seed with John Newman, who's kind of the father of Hobby Hotline, and he's always doing these cards. I predict the set for the National. The Chicago National will be debut patches of each of the Hobby Hotline co-hosts. So Orlando,
I love that.
He and frankly, he's not a graphic artist to the nth degree, but he'll probably work something up. And I look forward to So John, challenge given.
Yeah, I love that. And then we have Abel actually had a funny comment here. Hitters start with the no-hitter patch, and then after they give up their first hit, they rip it off. I think that's a better idea than being like in the 6th or 7th inning, be like, hey buddy, can you just come here? I'm just gonna throw a patch on you real quick. Just hey, you're doing or you can just even, give him a pat on the back and be like, here you go. And then just toss one of those no-hitter patches on his back so he doesn't even notice. And then let's see, we got Orlando. We got another comment about Orlando here. Orlando must nail each pair of the socks he wears from the hobby hotline. I love that. And then another interesting comment here that I think kind of speaks to the topic we were just talking about was, why does it have to be either or when it comes to, I think that's probably in reference to the patches, if I had to guess. Right. I think like Dr. Beckett has said throughout this whole podcast or throughout the whole show, is like, it's just a business decision ultimately. Like that's, unfortunately, it does come down to, unfortunately, it does come down to us as the customers. Like that's where it ends up, the trickle down effect or whatever in terms of pricing. But just for example, like in the Victor Wembanyama patches, like those are, some of them are game worn and some of them aren't. So it's like, it's really, I'm not a fan of I wish that they would just come out with less patch cards again. And maybe it's fixing the configurations, and it's maybe a little bit higher level than trying to just change up the way products are put together. And maybe that is a little bit tougher, but I think either way, I would like more game worn stuff. But at the same time, it's like, especially with the, it's probably easier in the MLB to get game worn stuff. In like the NFL or in basketball, it's probably a little bit harder because they have half the games. So it's like, you never really know like what jersey is going to go with what. And if, players might just not want to give up their jersey. But I think, that debut patch, I do, like we were saying, I do like that we know exactly what game it came from because it's from their first game. And, I think that's, Dr. Beckett, like you were saying, you have some great ideas with like certain specific patches for commemorative games that are important. I mean, I love the last game patch. I think is really a really good idea. I mean, I've always thought that rookie cards and like last year, like retiring year cards could be an interesting kind of nuance within the sports card. I don't think it'll ever really pick up, to be honest, just because I don't know. I tend to find myself coming up with ideas that are I think would be fun, but aren't really like business savvy. I would say probably more for like a fun collecting thing. But yeah, so like these patches, I mean, so, you know, Orlando, what do you have any final thoughts on the patches before we move on to the last topic of the show here?
No, I just hope they continue it. I hope they do some of this for maybe this World Series. Get some patches from the World Series, some of the big things.
Yeah, that would be great too.
I think that could be
Yeah,
for
totally.
next year. Yeah,
Guys,
Right, totally.
collectors, you know, Adam, collectors don't want less; they want
Right.
more. And so, if you say you have a chance to get a base card or a card that has an embedded swatch of the player's T-shirt that he wore on the way to the game, they'll say, "Give me the T-shirt."
Right. Yeah. Right.
And it's a plain white T-shirt.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would like to see them more. I don't know. I just wish that they were able to maybe invest more in getting more of these patches that are actually game worn, or actually, you know, finding them from specific moments in their career, in their games when they're playing, rather than, you know, because like we said, we don't even know what player worn really means. Like it's really just, it's kind of an arbitrary term for, like, again, it's, you know, it's the joke of the what's his face, the run.
We do know it means not worn in a
right.
game.
Right. Yeah, it's
and
like
maybe not even ever
touching
touching their skin. It touched the other
right.
jerseys there. I've seen, my buddies at the card companies have told me. So we do know, and we can assume the worst, but it still does not, Adam, it does not have as much effect on the secondary market as you would think, because the collectors, the more casual collectors think, hey, cool, it's a relic.
Yeah, they want
and like you said, they want more.
An autograph. They want something from that player.
Yeah.
And you know, that kind of will lead, you want to start with the next topic, which is the autograph, because I think, you know, people, you know, my question was, have we jumped the shark on these autographs already with some of these athletes that are literally just putting an initial now, or just they're just nothing. I mean, it's ridiculous the kind of autographs that they're signing right now. And I think, you know, what do you guys think? Have we jumped the shark on these things?
It's not
I'll start with you, Dr. Beckett.
It's not jumping the shark. I mean, it's just, there's a continuum there, Orlando. And you know, before in the old days, you'd probably rather have an autograph card than a relic card. But as the autographs shrink and the relics improve and increase, you know, that it's not jumping the shark. It's just that, would you rather have some really cool patch, huge patch or some really dynamic card of Richardson that instead of this AR, or maybe he's down to just A now, but there will be a backlash, and we'll see it in the secondary market, that people will pay more for better game used stuff and better, more legible autographs. And that, and then the players aren't going to like that. They need to go learn how to write cursive. They need to write some kind of an autograph. And I've had a few sessions back in the old days where I'd sign a bunch of autographs for the guys at the company. It's not fun. It's not fun signing 50 autographs at a time. And you tend to want to, but each one of them is for a person. And so you ought to give it some attention. But I haven't done 500. I haven't done 5,000. So AR is at the end of the line. I'd like to see some righteous indignation that this is, you know, on behalf of not just the card companies, but the Players Association, that this is part of their responsibility to the fans to make a better effort.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
That frustrates me.
Yeah, and then I want to point out one comment really quick. It was using commas and periods every once in a while. Those are not in my vocabulary, unfortunately. If you have ever heard me on any other podcast, you know I do tend to jump around when it comes to subtopics. So it's not. I've been trying to do it a little bit better, but you know, hey, it is what it is, unfortunately. And then I wanted to point out another comment here that I thought was interesting. Hard to argue that anything in the hobby has become more watered down than autographs, which I think that was your point, Orlando. So I mean,
Right.
I'll let you kind of jump in here and kind of give your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the player comes in and they all of a sudden have to sign first deal 5,000 autographs. I mean, it's like Dr. Beckett says. I mean, these guys are young guys. They want to go out and party and have fun. They don't want to sit there and sign 5,000 autographs. So they take the shortcut. But I think that it's really ruining the hobby. I think these crappy autographs that you don't even know who it is anymore. I mean, it's not like Mickey Mantle or anything like that. And I think it's just become that every product has so many autographs of the same guys every year. I mean, how many Wemby autographs are out there? I mean, are we going to get 1 million autographs eventually?
Right.
It's just,
Yeah,
I think,
and I mean, I think with
how much is too much,
Right. Yeah, and I think with the Wemby autographs too, it's like they bought that exclusive license for him, so they have to figure out a way to make their money back. Because like Dr. Beckett has been, like I said, again, I'm going to mention it again. It comes down to business. It comes down to profit and loss. It comes down to a number on a spreadsheet essentially. So like if Topps bought the Wemby auto exclusive for $1 million, they are going to have to try and sell $1 million worth of products that include that to make their money back. And they're not even just trying to break even here. They're going to try and sell $2 million so that way they can, they're going to try and double their money essentially. Unfortunately, go ahead.
They just sold $24 million worth of Wemby product that had 6,000 autographed Wembys in it. Now, some of them are combos, but that's so it won't be 1 million right away, but they're getting $1,000 a card, for the 8-card pack, and there's a couple autographs in there, so that's 6,000 autographs of Wemby. They're dumped on the market, and it's going to be a lot of excitement in the beginning, but it's got to water down the autographs So there'll be a day of reckoning for autographs.
Yeah. I think that's my point. What are they going to be worth 5 years from now when there's going to be 10 times the amount for each player?
Right.
I mean, look at Pete Rose's autograph today, or Bob Feller.
Right.
So Adam, all you need to do is say, look at Pete Rose or Bob Feller, period, end of sentence.
Right.
That's all you have to say.
Right. Yeah.
That's your punctuation.
Yeah. And, actually, I think we're kind of coming up on the top of the hour here. So I think we're going to wrap things up in a couple minutes here. But, one question I have for you, Dr. Beckett, is do you think that Panini should be monitoring these autographs a little bit more, especially in this specific year, because they don't have CJ Stroud, they don't have Bryce Young, they don't have Will Levis. Anthony Richardson is kind of the biggest name that they have coming out of that product. Obviously Bijan Robinson, running backs, but from a quarterback perspective, do you think that there needs to be some sort of more regulation on what these autographs look like? I think probably yes, but I'm interested from your perspective, Dr. Beckett. Do you think they need to sign the autograph and be like, no, you need to change your autograph?
Good luck with that. Come on. These are big stars. I mean, the guys I know that have monitored for Panini and predecessor companies, it's wonderful. In fact, I've actually sat in on a couple things like that where the player is autographing and you're there and you're talking to them, you're observing, you're encouraging them. But in one case, it was an all-day session. So you're trying to break it up. And the last thing you need to do is, hey, dude, that's unacceptable. It's hard to do that, but they're there. They're number one, making sure that they're signing every card, and it needs to be, let's just say, it needs to be authenticatable. In other words, it needs to be characteristically like AR now is, that you could say, okay, that's his shorter signature. But if it just becomes a dot or a squiggle and you can't tell it from somebody else's. And so yeah, the Panini guys, everybody is trying to sit in on these autograph sessions as much as possible to, number one, to verify that they're really signing, or they're not doing auto pen, and they're not having a secretarial or a sister or wife or girlfriend signing. And so, So that's what they're doing. But the short signature, it's smart for them to have a shorter signature than
Right.
Anthony Richardson. That it
Yeah,
won't even
which he
fit
does
on,
have a long name
it
too. Yeah.
won't even fit on the sticker that we're
Right.
trying to get
Right.
rid
Yeah.
of, or on the
Right.
card. In fact, sometimes they write off a sticker. So I think the card company, my buddies that do that stuff, they're trying to make sure. I mean, that's the least of their worries, that the guy's signing it with a more of an abbreviated signature.
Yeah, and I'm sure Panini is just like, we just need to get these autographs. In theory, I wish they maybe cared a little bit more
No,
about like,
no.
what the
Don't
autographs
assume
look
they
like.
don't care. They do care. It's just they can't. Are you going to twist Anthony Richardson's arm?
Right. Yeah. Right.
His left arm or his right arm? You're going to get in trouble. You have no leverage. You have
Right.
no leverage. As long as
And especially with him.
Ryan Gray found out that if you don't sign at all, he sued an athlete and kind of won and got it resolved. But if they sign it in any way, then it's just the way it is. And that's
yeah,
true.
and like, oh, go ahead,
There was a
Orlando.
comment that said it's the education system, and I agree with that. A lot of these people they just don't even know how to write in script anymore.
Right.
It's just
and Richardson is like, I mean, players that make it to the NFL, they have been on that pace for, almost their whole lives, probably at some point. Like some of these players, like when they're 10 years old, they're just like, this guy could go pro. And then eventually they maybe don't care as much about learning cursive, So that definitely, and then, Gordon had a good little comment here. He said, like Dr. Beckett said, good luck trying to get Anthony Richardson. And then Foul Ball also mentioned, like, the athletes just don't really care about, they just want to sign and get it over with. I mean, I could definitely see that, unfortunately.
Adam, I care, but I don't know if you got everybody, I think, occasionally has to give a digital VeriSign. You have to use your finger on the iPad or on your device, whatever, to mimic your signature. And it's legal if from these third-party authentication of like your tax return. But my signature looks like a first grader because I'm using my finger in there, and that's because I didn't grow up doing that. So my wife can do it, and it looks better, but me, it looks like I'm a little kid. And so that's what it's like for these athletes. And people could say, hey, that's not good enough. Do a better job. I'm saying, I'm doing my best. I just don't know how to do digital cursive with my finger on a blobby finger on a screen there.
Right.
And so it looks stupid, and it's not legible. There's a J and a B in there somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, and someone like you, Dr. Beckett's been working on I'm sure you've been working on your actual real autograph for quite some time. And it's like, if you struggle with the digital thing, it's like, it just shows that maybe it's harder than we think maybe to sign all these autographs, especially when it's like you've signed, like you were saying, like 5,000 of them. You get to the end, you're just like, oh God, get this over with here. So, but Orlando, Adam, you had a quick point here.
I would still like to see them take pride in their signature and understand that, this is going to somebody that is a fan, that loves you, that really admires you. And they're something that they're going to, one of their prized possessions, your autograph. Take pride in that. And I don't know how we're going to get that across to the athletes, but I think that's the message that some of their, maybe the coaches or maybe their agent can kind of say, hey, guys, think about this. This is going to be something one of your fans, or a lot of times maybe they don't think about it. They just, hey, let's get this done, get it out of the way.
No, the problem, guys, is that almost every collector would rather have a bad autograph of a great player than a great autograph of a bad player.
Yeah,
legibility. It's all about the player, and so if that player is pictured and it's Tom Brady with the TB12 kind of thing, and he was in a hurry and it's smudged, it's still a Tom Brady autograph.
Right, yeah. Yeah, people would rather have the autograph, and also, like you were saying, people would rather have the autograph even if it's not like a great autograph of a great player, rather than like a phenomenal looking autograph of a player who, maybe as like a backup or something like that. So,
it's inversely proportional. The worst players have the best autographs.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because
Well, because they're,
busy,
I mean, I would imagine they're just happy to sign.
Penmanship. They're busy practicing their penmanship instead
Right.
of practicing their free
Right.
throws.
Not many
Yeah,
people will ask
exactly.
him for autographs like a Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we are up at the top of the hour here. We're going to wrap things up, I think, on today's show. So, Orlando, I'll give you the floor here. Anything you want to promote, anything you got coming up that you want to tell the audience about?
No, not much really. I'm just I'll be heading over to Orlando the first week in November for the Fanatics show that they're going to have over there, and I think that should be a big show. I'll do some video there and kind of share some stuff from there, and that's going to be I think November 1st through the 3rd. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be there.
Nice, perfect, love that. Same with you, Dr. Beckett. What you got going on? Anything you want to promote as we're kind of wrapping up here?
Well, I'm going to the Dallas Card Show in a couple of weeks. That's going to be always fun. And I'm still doing my podcast 3 times a week. So, Adam, I got to say, you're doing a podcast 5/6 times a week. My hat's off to you because it is. I know it's a labor of love, but it's a lot of labor, and you really hit it hard, frequently, often. And I listen every single day. And
wow, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, if you haven't heard Dr. Beckett's podcast,
end of sentence.
Yeah, if you haven't heard Dr. Beckett's podcast, go check that out. Another Dr. Beckett, one of the smartest, most historic, I think. I don't know that not to. I don't know if that is connotation of old, but legend. Sorry, that's the right word. Legend of the hobby space. So much knowledge. Go check out Dr. Beckett's podcast, as well as I guess I will plug Hobby News Daily, I suppose. Also check out SI, as I've been writing for SI as well, so that's been a ton of fun. Danny has just been so phenomenal with Hobby News Daily, and then working with SI. I mean, I always try and give Danny a shout out because he has been one of the people who has really kind of what's the thing from the movie? It's like you gotta let the bird fly or something like that from the other guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. It's like you gotta let the bird fly or something like that. Danny has done that 100% for me, so I want to always give him a big shout out here. But yeah, check out si.com/collectibles. You'll see maybe a couple names that look maybe familiar from the show. Maybe you know them from Hobby News Daily. Maybe you just know them from the industry. But SI has been so great and brought on a ton of great writers. So that's another, want to give them a big shout out. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you for everybody leaving some great comments here today. We will be back here next Saturday on Bench Clear Media. Make sure to like and subscribe on whether you're watching on Facebook or whether you're watching on YouTube. I don't know if we were live on Twitter. I had a notification that we might not have been, but if you see the show on Twitter, like it there also. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the 2 co-hosts here, Dr. Beckett and Orlando. And thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.
Thank you.